Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to BLAW Live. This is Bishop Larry Ward, and BLAW stands for Bishop Lawrence Ward Live. And so I'm glad that you're here, glad that you're a part of this discussion. I know that many of you tune in with us on Tuesday evenings to watch our discussions that we have a special guest. And we always have a topic to share, and our purpose is to inspire you, encourage you, and to really help you to find ways to live your life better and to also live your life to the ultimate. And so we're just delighted to be here tonight. And we're going to be talking about what it really means to be a father. And this is coming up on Father's Day. It's going to be the 20th. And we've been doing the second sharing of information and just allowing our guests to talk about fathering, because I believe fathering is important. I believe mothers are important, but I also believe fathers are important. So what I guess tonight, for BLAW Live. First of all, is Ron Savage. And Ron, he's a member of our church, and perhaps you've seen him if you've watched Abundant Life Church. You've probably seen him with the Ron Savage Trio. And he's been a blessing to our ministry for so many years and bringing us music and a lot of other ways of serving the body. And also we have Walter Greer with us. Walter, and he is a dynamic man of God serving on our board and our ministry, and just really, he and his wife, just fantastic members of our church. And they're going to be telling you a little bit about themselves, but also we're going to be talking about their families and how they're leading their families. And so I just want to just thank you, Ron. Thank you, Walter. Thank you for coming. How are you guys doing?
Doing good.
Doing good. Thanks for inviting us.
Well, we're gonna dive right in. So Ron, just tell the audience just a little bit about yourself. Maybe they kind of saw you from afar a little bit back, as they tune in, maybe the Abundant Life Church during some concerts. But just tell them a little about yourself.
Well, I've been attending Abundant Life now for 25 years. I know that because my son just turned 25, and he was the reason, his birth was the reason that we started attending. I work at Berklee College of Music. I'm the dean of the performance division there. I'm a jazz musician, jazz drummer by training. I also run the Ron Savage Music Academy, which helps provide low-cost music instruction and instruments to young kids. I'm involved in youth sports. I coach basketball and baseball, and so serve on a number of boards around Boston and Cambridge.
Thank you for coming. Thank you for being here tonight. Walter, would you just share a little bit about yourself and tell the audience who you are?
I am a transient from Tennessee, originally born, bred, and raised in Mississippi. I'm in insurance sales is my profession. Been doing it for a while, insurance and claims. Father of two boys, just turned 12 this past week, and the oldest, and he is tall and wears a size 10.5 shoe. My youngest is 9, and moved here, beautiful wife Victoria. Moved up here to Massachusetts, do her profession. Stayed at home with the boys. So been a stay-at-home dad. A work-at-home dad, and there you go. That's what I do. So that is me so far.
But thank you, Walter. Thank you for coming on BLAW Live tonight. So to dive right in, I got the first question I'd like to ask you. Were you nervous when you think about, your first child? Were you nervous about becoming a father? So I'm gonna start with Walter, then I'm gonna go to Ron.
Yes. Very simple. I was nervous about getting out. I really didn't know what to do. Then of course the second one came, and like you see in the Huggies commercials, it's like the second kid is like, okay, put him in the shower and give him a bath. Oh, they'd be all right. It just felt, But nervous, I was so nervous the first time. I mean, anything that he did, he cried, I woke up. I mean, I slept like, I was a light sleeper. It's like any sound, I was like up. Like anything, any rustling, I'm just like there. I mean, you read all the stories and stuff, and it's just, it freaked me out, man. So I really was very nervous when he finally came. And then even during the birth, seeing my beautiful wife not being, even though it's still beautiful, still a different type of beautiful in the delivery room. So it was very nervous for me, man. It was very nerve wracking, very loving experience. I'll do it all over again. I mean, I tell anybody, I said it's the best feeling in the world, man.
Wow. And you have two children, two boys?
Two boys.
So what felt different the second time than the first time? Were you not just as nervous?
Well, the second time it was a planned C-section, so I kind of prepared myself. The
Okay.
first time it was like, hey, we gotta go to the hospital now, and I'm like, all right, wait a minute. And so the second time it was okay. We knew what to do. We knew how to, the black poop and all that type of stuff, and we had all the diapers, we had everything already in place. So you kind of knew the routine. The only thing that you had to learn was the personality of the second child, which to this day we're still learning. And man, is it too like night and day between these two guys. so so the second kid, it was just easier in taking him and rearing him up, knowing when he was hungry, so forth and so on. But even as they get older, you're kind of looking like, okay, third, my oldest, he'll eat anything. My youngest, oh dude, it's straight rice and maybe some fruit. That's it. So it's just you learning that personality of that second kid, and that's the challenge.
Wow. That's yeah. Nervousness certainly was my part of it in the first one too. I didn't know what I was nervous, but I tried. I was look cool, but I was nervous. I was nervous. So Ron, how about you? 25 years, kind of looking back.
Yeah, I can't. I wasn't nervous about him. I was nervous about me. I think my was more nervous about my profession and like could I make my profession work and maintain a family, because it was something that was, I made the decision that even when my wife was in labor, there were challenges she had, and when she was pregnant, there were a number of challenges. She had a very difficult pregnancy. So even before we got here, I realized that, going on the road 40 weeks a year and trying to maintain a stable family home was going to be a challenge. And I'm not saying it was impossible, but how I was going to do that, and also knowing that when you have a baby, you need some dough. Like you need money. Like that's not the time to, like my wife was sick and couldn't work during the later stages of her pregnancy. She didn't have protections on her job, so eventually they eliminated her job. So even if she had wanted to go back to work, immediately she we could have, go to court and sue, I guess, or try to find a new job. But she was still having health issues in the aftermath of the delivery and stuff like that. So then it really came down to me trying to hold it together. So I was more nervous about that than him and what to do with him. Probably that came a little later, as I started to become more vigilant and really understand my responsibility. Then I started to become like, okay, I have to make sure I have the right perspective on my role in this process.
Wow. So when it came to just your own nervousness, you had a lot going on. It sounds like you had a lot going on with your wife's health and your career at the same time.
Right. Fortunate for good friends, that verse says a friend loves at all times. And when it was my son's birthday last week, uh, his godmother came over. Now, when my wife was pregnant, I went on tour her 9th month, and the woman who became his godmother moved in our apartment and lived with my wife so I could go on the road. But that was like a symptom of what's to come. Man. Like, how am I going to make this work? I can't. Someone can't move into my house every time I have to go out and find work, and you know, so those were my concerns. It was really challenging and knowing the pitfalls of my profession.
Wow, that's good. That's good. Seemed like you were able to manage that pretty well. Hindsight being 2020, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, like I had a lot of help, and it's one of the things that kind of drove us to church. It's like we got to figure out how to manage this,
Mhm.
and learning through scripture and stuff like that. Those examples helped us hold it together. Yes.
Wow. Now, when I think about your families, okay, you have sons, and you have and Ron, not only you have a son, you have a daughter as well. Um, can you talk a little bit about what are you and what have you done to teach and train them to kind of grow up to be men? I know, Walter, you have your children are much younger than Ron's children, so it'd be good to just have both of your perspectives on what are things that you're teaching your children, and maybe what things have you taught your young son or your sons how to be, grow up and be responsible young men. So I'll start with Ron. Start with you this time.
Well, I would say the one thing that I tried to get across is that you are how you live. Like who you are is determined and defined by how you live more than anything else. Righteously or not unrighteously or somewhere in between or just whatever it is, that's really who you are. And so I tried to set that example um, for that. I tried to live in a way that was really a way that I thought was good for me and the family, but also set an example. I think fathers, parents, by definition, are leaders because the definition of leader is to set an example for others to follow. And so I tried to get both my kids to understand that. And I'm not talking about trying to one of the things I learned in being a father that the attempt to be perfect is not only unrealistic, it's almost irresponsible
Mm.
because all the people under your leadership and your judgment are subject to the silliness that comes with trying to be perfect and you trying to be, uh, a perfect person and have everything around you be perfect all the time. And I think it creates a situation of happiness and just can really break down some of the bonds of the family. So I'm not talking about, raising perfect children or being a perfect father. I do believe in righteousness. They're not one and the same. I do believe that you can live a certain way where even when you make mistakes, you can handle those a certain way that's productive for the situation. But I would say that's the thing I tried to get across the most, that how you live is who you are. Your deeds, your actions, the way you treat people, the way you treat yourself, that's who you are.
Well, well. So Walter, as your children and your sons specifically are growing up, you have what, a 12-year-old, and your youngest son is how old?
9.
9. So what are the things that you're investing in them in their learning as they grow up to be young men?
I agree with Brother Ron. I mean, that's one of the things that it's like the core of what he's talking about. How you live, how you act, how you treat your brother. So examples I would put is like, okay, you guys are arguing over a game. Okay, if your friend was here over, having a play date, would you be yelling and snatching toys from him or her? No. Okay. Why are you doing it with your brother? This is your blood. This is the person you sleep with in the same room every night, who's going to be with you until you leave this earth. This is the guy who is going to sit there and take your back, regardless of what people say about you. The arguing has to stop. This is where it starts right here. How you treat each other in the house and as a sibling, and as a brother, is how you're going to treat other people in the world. Wow. And so teaching them just that basic, I agree with Brother Ron, not being perfect, my early days, I used to snap, be like really snap and like lose it. And I'm like, wait a minute, what am I doing? And so then I have to go back and apologize. Them seeing that, they have to sit there and realize, like, man, when I mess up, I gotta catch myself, come back, and apologize to the person I offended or the person that I sat there and upset. Now they don't do it on their own. They're not perfect. They're 12 and they're 9. So there's going to be some coaching that has to take place. And sometimes mommy has to step in as well. So it's that thing where we tag team, my wife and I teach it to them. We both teach it and say, hey, look, guys, chill out. You take a break, you take a break. Hey, you come with me. You come to the store with me. Or we're going to go for a walk. We separate the two. Sometimes you got to take a break from each other. You can't be around each other all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So you teach them, I'm teaching them kind of how to deal with issues when they come up. A lot of things in the world, grown-ups included, real grown men, haven't been taught how to deal with life. And we see a lot of that now today in our society going on. So, and they watch the news and all this type of stuff. So I'm not keeping them sheltered from looking at the news. Just like my 9-year-old just before I got on was like, hey, they arrested that guy who killed that 5-year-old in California. I said, exactly, because he lost it. He had road rage and he shot into a moving vehicle and killed a 5-year-old. So he sees that and says, that's bad. And so I said, yeah. I said, so you have to learn how to control your anger and control whatever it is that's going on. It's not the end of the world just because something happens, bad happens in your life. So that's kind of what I do, teach day to day. It's not perfect. It doesn't go well all the time, but that's the end goal, is to kind of help them manage life.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's great. Thank you. And for those of you listening, I want to invite you to put your questions in the chat box. If you have any questions that you'd like to have Ron or Walter answer, we certainly will want to hear your questions and your thoughts. Or if you just have a comment, we'd be glad to hear that too. So I'd like to move into this question. At the age and stage where your children are, what things do you do with them? What things do you do with them? So I'll start with Walter. What things do you do with your young men?
So my boys are not sport guys. So we tried out baseball, sit there and look and be like, dude, the ball's coming towards you. Come on. So that was the early 5-year-old days, and soccer wasn't their thing. Like, hey, they kicked my leg. I'm like, yeah, that's part of it. So, what I'd start doing as, we just say, okay, look, it's not that I want you to play baseball. I just want you to learn how to catch a baseball and throw a baseball. Okay? Throw a football, play basketball. So when you go out with your friends, or if you're out on a date, I don't want your girlfriend to be able to throw a ball better than you. Not saying there's nothing wrong with that, but if you can't catch your girlfriend throwing a ball at you because nobody ever taught or you ever tried to catch a baseball, she's going to be like, dude, what's up? Well, my dad tried to teach me how to play baseball. I just didn't want to do it. And she's going to be like, dude, it's just a baseball. We're just throwing the ball. So I told him, I said, look, let's play some basketball. Let's kind of get some balls. We got baseballs. And we start throwing. So the time we spend is that, and we play basketball. My oldest, he finally got into basketball. So he's like LeBron James and all this, like I was when I was with Michael Jordan when I was a kid. And you're just trying to educate them and school them on sports. Because I'm like, I watch sports all the time. And they're just like, I don't want to see that. Now it's like, hey, who's playing? So just trying to engage them on the sport aspect of the sport, not because I'm pushing them to play anything. If it just so happens that they want to play, I'll invest in it and, encourage them. But just to be able to shoot a basketball, I said, you don't have to be LeBron James playing basketball. You just have to know how to dribble and shoot. That's it. I mean, so just to learn those basic things. So that's spending that time with them. That's what I do. So that's how we have our talks. That's how we learn discipline. I said, that's what that sport's about. You miss a goal, you don't get upset. What you gonna get upset about? So,
That's
you know,
good. That's
yeah,
it's good getting your kids around sports. That's always a healthy thing to do. For
yeah,
even us as dads to get out there and just be able to run around with
exactly. That's
young people.
exercise for me too.
Yeah, definitely that definitely helps us. So Ron, how about you? What do you do with your kids?
Well, I will say this: when I
Young.
stopped coaching uh, sports, I gained a lot of weight. So that's yeah. But I because my kids are older, my daughter has two kids. Um, we spend a lot of family time together. We really do. I mean, she lives right across the street, so we see her almost every day. We see the grandkids almost every day. And my son lives about 6 blocks away, so he's over quite a bit. And so we're not doing, especially during COVID, specific activities, but mostly just spending family time together, talking about life, talking about jobs. They're both involved in politics, so we do spend some time talking about politics. As you know, my daughter's running for mayor, so we, sometimes talk a little bit about strategies. Not so much. She has a campaign team that handles that, but just how she's doing, how does she feel about how things are working, and how to better support her and stuff like that. So we do still, uh, at 25 and 30 plus, we do spend a lot of family time together. Um, pretty much we see each other almost every day still at this, which I like. One of the things when I had a family, is when I thought about what I wanted. We heard the sermon about determining what type of family you want. I wanted a family that was tight. I wanted us to be tight. I wanted us to be tight knit, because it's the way my father was. Even when we had some tough times and we were struggling in a number of ways, he always put effort in keeping the family together and keeping
Mhm.
the family tight and invested. He showed how invested he was in the family, and he showed how much he was invested in each of us individually and keeping the unit together. So that was something that was really driven home. Not He never talked about it, but it was definitely based on the way that he lived and the way he parented, that that the family was tight and stayed together. So I would say that was one of the things I always wanted. I wanted us to be tight, and we are. So we spend a lot of time together.
Oh, that's good. That's good. And those traditions and those examples are very powerful. How we invest that into our own families, and our children really take note of that as well. And that's a good way of building legacies. Legacies. That so I got a question. I want to hit this question before we get, because we're almost out of time, and I want to talk about spiritual leadership. Uh, Fathers in their spiritual leadership, because often what happens, we can be good providers, we can be good, protectors of our family, but sometimes we're not always that great with spiritual leadership. What does that mean for you as a Christian, as a man of God, leading in the home where you have your children watching you? What does that spiritual leadership look like from your vantage point, and how do you implement what that means in your context of your house? How about we start with Ron, and then we'll go to Walter.
Well, I feel like you had to walk it, like you had to live it out, like it couldn't be, you know, you had. I feel like that was very important. That whatever I'm committed to, I live it out. I don't just talk about it. So whether it's attending church, or saying grace before meals, or talking about the power of prayer, acknowledging God's role in my life, I feel like those were things that I had to live out before I could even begin to talk. You know, you know, this is why I do this. This is why I believe this. This is why I have faith in this. This is how we got where we are. Right? I feel like before I could go into details about those things, there had to be evidence to my children that I was living it. And not that I wasn't living it to prove anything to them. I was trying to live it because it was truly what I felt was best for me. But I didn't feel like I could imbue them with that sense of the importance of spiritual life and dealing with their spirit and a belief in God and our belief system. I didn't feel like I could do that if they could not say, "Oh, I see that. Oh, that's what that is," you know. So that was it for me. I felt like whatever I was going to be into, I was going to be all the way into it and really believe in it. And then we could have conversations about why I'm doing it, why I think it's important for them to engage. But I thought it was absolutely important that they have, even if at some point they rejected my beliefs, I felt like it was important that they have a sense that I believe in a spiritual life and I live my life that way. I thought that was, you know, at some point it's every individual's choice on how they're going to live. So I would go back to my initial point about how you live is who you are, you know. But I felt like I had to live it sincerely and genuinely first, and then I can, you know, uh, spread it or promote it within my family and talk about it and teach it within my family.
Wow. Thank you. That's really important. How about you, Walter?
I totally agree with Brother Ron as well. But you know, the thing I tell people is being a spiritual head is when we go to bed at night and they remind me, say, "Hey, Dad, we forgot to pray," or "Mom, we forgot to pray." And when you pray, you're praying over them. The words that we pray in the prayer and we lift up the others is what we but they remember. They remember the scriptures, they remember the Bible stories, they remember everything that we talk about. And even at this young age, you know, I'm kind of, because I'm like, Brother Ron, your kids are grown. And it's like, I'm just praying that they remember when they turn 17, when they turn 25, the things that we instill in them. The prayers, seeing me pray, seeing me read the Bible, seeing us doing Superbook and going through the videos and discussing David. You know, why did David do this? You know, how did he kill Goliath? And what was his belief? What was his faith? I said, that's the faith that Dad's trying to live out in my personal life to be an example to you all and to live by faith. And so to instill in you to live by faith in God. And those are the things that I'm praying that it's attaching and it's like getting something going as they grow, you know, and they become the 12-year-old. I see it in my 12-year-old at times, and it's like you see it in my young one, 9-year-old, and it's like, man, these guys are getting it a lot better than I did at 9 and 12. But they're getting the word, and their mom is instilling the word, so it's not any friction there between us, you know, husband and wife, as you see in some marriages. She says, hey, take the role, take the lead in teaching them the Bible from a man's standpoint, and as they grow into boys and the young men and so forth. And so living out that example to them and letting them know, like, hey, this is what Dad's about. This is what I believe. And like Brother Ron said, you know, if they grow up and decide to do something else, they know what I believe in. And so that's an example. That's a strong, strong representation versus somebody from the outside of your home influencing them on what to think and believe. So that's kind of where I'm at right now. And it appears to be working. So I will continue to do it and to show that example to them, because I want them to be the best in what God called them to be. So
that's good. That's good. I got one burning question to ask, so we only have a couple of minutes, and it might be just a smidgen over our time, but I have to ask this question. That is, when it comes to the discipline in your home as relates to your children, as a father, what role and what part did you play in the discipline of your children? So I'm going to start with Walter, and then we're going to go to Ron.
So my 12-year-old is a goody two shoes. This cat doesn't do anything like wrong. All right. So he doesn't push the boundary at all. He kind of does in a like little small way, but nothing to really like throw you off. My youngest though, he's the one. So the discipline has to come at a very controlled, disciplined way because it'll push you in a sense that you just lose it. So I've learned to discipline in love, but still show authority at the same time. So that's how I've learned how to discipline these two boys because they're two different creatures, two totally different creatures. So if you discipline one, the oldest, he's gonna listen. If you discipline the other one, he's gonna say, "Nah, you gotta do a little bit more than that." And so it's just you just have to be patient with them and discipline in the right way, in the right method.
Are you more of a disciplinarian than your wife, or is she more of a disciplinarian than you?
I'm probably more of a more disciplinary than she is. Yeah, but if you cross her, she's gonna. Yeah, that's why they don't want to cross. Because even I feel bad sometimes. I'm like, hey, Vicky, hold on, man.
Sometimes it's a little bit more one end to the other, but thank you. That was great. So Ron, when it comes to discipline, you got a 25-year-old, so we gotta have to kind of look back at some of those times, huh?
Yeah, I mean, I was, I was the main disciplinarian, and I would say the challenge of that for me was our life experiences as young people were so different, and it took me a while to try to, and I don't know if I ever got it completely, but to understand I can't understand him fully and try to discipline him in the appropriate way, looking through my life experiences, right? Because they were different than his. So, I used to say, well, I didn't have this when I was a kid. Well, he has it. So that doesn't mean anything to him. And so it took me, my wife kept saying, he's not you. And I was like, I know he's not me because, I can work two brooms and study at the same time. And, and finally hit me. He's not me. Like he can't relate to my life experiences, no matter as a 9-year-old, as a 12-year-old, no matter how much I try to explain, because I lived those, and I didn't want him to live those. Like I didn't want him to go through what I went through. I wanted to have a different experience. But then when I got him a different experience, I was ticked off that he couldn't understand what I went through. So my wife really helped me kind of corral that in and put that in perspective. And I think the challenge is when you have Black boys is we don't want to punish them for the biases that they'll face. Like where you have to walk the straight and narrow because if you run across a police officer, you could lose your life. Right? It's really almost unfair to put that on a 10-year-old or a 12-year-old. It's true. Right? So finding that balance of disciplining so they can reach their potential and trying as much as possible to weed out our own fears based on the corruption of society. I would say that was my second challenge. I mean, the reality is we have to teach our children about society, or else they can be subject to and even if we teach them, they still can be subject to this poor treatment that we see happening so often. But trying to find that balance of making them aware, giving them correction, but not, destroying their inner creativity, their inner spirit out of fear what they may face in society. So I think that's an extra layer of complication, especially for, when I realized my son was going to be a 6 foot tall, athletic black man, I had to think about how I was going to help him learn how to manage that. And your boys are both tall and big, and Walter's that's the first thing that came to my mind when you said he's 12 wearing a 10 and a half shoe. He's going to be a big black man, and so how do we discipline them and love and help prepare them, but make them aware of society without, putting up obstacles to keep them from becoming the men that God wants them to be. I found that, especially coming from the deep South where it was very harsh, racism was very harsh. I found that a challenge.
Wow, that's a very interesting perspective as well. Raising young men in different parts of the country, and I've been a native of Massachusetts, Boston, New England all my life. So both you coming from South, you see things definitely different, and you experience things different as you come to different parts of the country. So yeah, that's a great insight. Well, I think that's all the time we have, and so we have some more questions, but we gotta do this again because we just gotta just maybe even just scratch the surface of that. And so thank you so much for being our guest. And we're definitely gonna have you on again because we got to talk about some other deeper things. I'm sure that people will be interested in when it comes to talking about men and fathering, and particularly being black men. I think this is really, really important that people know. Well, so thank you everyone for being part of BLAW Live tonight. I hope that you enjoyed our conversation, and certainly if you enjoyed what you're hearing, you can actually go and you can subscribe. You can also look at our archives of different topics that we shared on. And so tell someone that they can tune in and hear some really good information and hear from some wonderful guests that they have some really powerful things to share to help you. So with that in mind, we just want to just thank you, and we want to bless you. And so may the Lord bless you. May the Lord keep you. May the Lord cause his face to shine upon you. May the Lord be gracious unto you and give you his peace, his shalom, nothing missing, nothing broken. Thank you so much for being a part of BLAW Live. Thank you, Ron. Thank you, Walter. Thank you, Tonya. And we'll see you next time right here at BLAW Live.